Hi, I'm Amy and welcome to my channel. I'm a manifestation and relationship mentor, and this channel is all about merging spirituality and psychology so that you can manifest your relationships. And in today's video, I'm going to discuss how I moved through years of resistance so that I could manifest my specific person to finally live with me. But if you like this content, please consider subscribing to this channel and leaving this video a like so that other people have access to it. But let's get started. So when I say resistance, what do I mean by resistance? So resistance is anything that comes up within you that is in direct opposition to your desire. So that might be limiting beliefs, that might be trauma, that might be fear, anything that is not on board with your manifestation. And at the start of my journey, this is when I'd been in a relationship with my specific person, which lasted, I would say, about 12 months-ish, and it ended horrifically. It was horrible, but I didn't know anything about manifestation at this point. So I got into Neville Goddard, I did all the techniques, and he came back. And we went through this merry-go-round for years and years of on again, off again, hot and cold, up and down. It was horrible, really, really traumatic. But there was still the desire there. And what would happen is that I would start doing techniques, I would start doing healing work on the surface, just enough to have that relationship come back in, and I would get sucked back in again. All my whole hard work went out of the window and the cycle would continue. And this went on until the last breakup that we had, which was about 2 years ago. And I still had all of this resistance to the relationship, but the only difference was that I was really in a space where I didn't want it anymore. I was completely ready to throw in the towel. I didn't want to do any more work on myself, on the relationship, on manifestation. I was done. I was completely done. And I let myself be there. I let myself not resist that, because before, when I'd felt like that, I'd really resisted the idea that I was done. I didn't want to feel beaten. I didn't want to feel disappointment. I'd just get straight back on the horse. I wouldn't do any healing work. I wouldn't do any introspection at all. I would just do these techniques in order to get him back. And we don't want to be there, because that's not the basis of a long-term relationship. That is not what's going to help you have this relationship and be able to maintain it. So what did I have to do? And there was 3 main things that I did, which I will go through in separate videos because there's an awful lot for one video. But the main things that I did was that I developed a relationship with my inner child. And this is something that I'd resisted so much, because the idea of my inner child filled me with such shame, such fear. I was afraid of looking at what was there. And I had to really release the resistance to actually doing inner child work. I wasn't used to consoling myself. I wasn't used to looking within for the things that I needed. I wasn't used to being able to fulfill my own needs. And I'm so glad that I started to do the inner child work, because actually it made me far more independent. It made me far more self-sufficient. And I was relying on the outside world less and less and less, because I started to fill my own needs. I asked myself moment to moment, what do I need right now? And I got used to giving that to myself. I got used to living life on my own terms, not what everybody else was doing. I managed to get busy. I discovered so many traits that I had that I'd suppressed that were actually so valuable. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I hadn't done inner child work. There is no way that I would show up on camera and teach this, because I wouldn't have had the confidence to. The second thing that I did was shadow work and reprogramming the shadow. And when we're looking at shadow work, nobody wants to do it because it's not got a very nice name, and shadow's not great and no one likes to work. So, you know, shadow work, I'd resisted shadow work an awful lot. And even though the inner child is part of the shadow, I would still have these traumas, and I had to really start connecting the dots as to what happened back then and how I'm behaving right now. And I had to really reprogram some of that really deep shame that I had, that really deep sense of failure that I had, and really start to transform and transmute those feelings within me and release them. And how I did this was I really committed to sitting with myself and treating myself with an awful lot of compassion, an awful lot of self-love, so that I could acknowledge these feelings, listen to what these feelings had to say, and integrate them. And I have got a video that I'll link up here somewhere about how to do shadow work. It's called The Beginner's Guide to Shadow Work, which I'll link. But that's a really good starter point in how to start processing your shadow and how to start integrating your shadow, because your shadow is not scary. Your shadow is you, and what we resist persists. So it makes sense then, whatever we're suppressing within the shadow, it's still manifesting in some form, and we can't escape that. So we might as well look at it, we might as well love it anyway, and make it easy on ourselves rather than pushing and forcing and suppressing and holding it down. So that was really the second thing that I did. That was the second thing that was really important in this process. And the third thing that I had to really understand and make sure that I was doing, because I was one of these people that would say that, oh yeah, I'm doing all of this, and I wasn't going all in with it. I wasn't really committing to it. But the third thing was embodiment, and how to actually become the person that I wanted to be. And having sat with a lot of my feelings, a theme in my life was insecurity. And this was right the way back in childhood, where I had this underlying feeling of insecurity that made me feel unworthy. It made me feel like I had to deal with things all on my own, made me feel really misunderstood for most of my life. And I had insecurity in every area of my life. There was never enough to make me feel secure. So I had to heal that insecurity. And the way that I did that, again, was a lot of reprogramming work, a lot of changing who I was and how I was showing up, how I was acting, how I was thinking, how I was feeling and believing, and reprogramming all of that so that I actually became a secure and confident person. So that was my identity. That is how I felt on a base level, the feeling of secure, the feeling of confidence. Because when you have this, then you aren't reliant on what's going on the outside. You aren't reliant on your relationship coming in. You're away enjoying your life, and then it just pops in, and you're ready for it because you already have that baseline of security. I'm not saying that you'll never get triggered ever again. Of course you do. Secure people get triggered. But the difference between a secure and insecure person is that secure people don't tell stories about their triggers. They don't make it mean something negative about them. And that is the difference. And when I got all these things down, and when I started being able to deal with things as they came up without suppressing it, without denying it, without disowning it, I became much more whole, much more fulfilled, much more understanding of myself. And that made it easier when resistance came up to process it in the moment and let it go. Process it and let it go. So a fear would pop up. I was able to process the fear, see where it came from, accept that it was there, and let it go and move forward, because that is all manifestation is. Manifestation is putting one foot in front of the other. That's all it is. And when we can deal with these things as they're coming up, when we can deal with fears and limiting beliefs as they're coming up, we can see how they're not true, and we don't resist them anymore. It's a lot less like you're walking through mud. It's a lot easier on the nervous system. It's a lot easier on the mind, because you can just sort of glide through, and they're not these massive obstacles anymore. You just glide through, and before you know it, your manifestation arrives. Easy as that. I wish it was. I know that this stuff isn't easy, and I think it's a myth in the manifestation world where people think that this should be easy, and when it's not, they think they're doing something wrong. But you're not doing anything wrong. You are not. You're not doing anything wrong. You are always on the right path. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.